On episode 746 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we bring back Dr. Susan Peirce Thompson and discuss her book, Maintain, the 3 simple shifts that turn temporary weight loss into lasting freedom. Welcome to the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, the largest and longest running health and fitness podcast dedicated to people over 40. Whether you're looking to lose weight, get stronger, or improve your health and age better, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Coach Allan, an online health and fitness coach and author of the Wellness Roadmap. Each week, we dive into practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and fitness. If you're ready to look, feel, and perform your best, no matter your age, this podcast is the perfect place to start. Let's get you on the path to a healthier, fitter, and more energetic version of yourself. I hope you'll join us each week, and together we can unlock your full potential. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Allan. I'm really glad that you're here this week. This was in the United States Mother's Day weekend, so we were traveling around seeing family, and we made a point of coming up here close to Chicago to spend some time with Tammy's mother and family. So we're up here for a few days. It's a little cold for me anyway, so I'm going to probably be doing some clothing shopping. I didn't bring nearly enough cold weather stuff for a May trip, but no, all's good. We're feeling pretty good. We're seeing family, a lot of driving, a lot of time for the two of us to spend some time together. We shut Lula's down for the month, so it kind of gives us some location freedom for a little while, and we're using that to the fullest extent possible. But the episode we have today is going to be really good. If you struggled after losing weight to keep it off, Dr. Susan Peirce Thompson has some great things to discuss in her new book, Maintain. Our guest today is the New York Times bestselling author of Bright Line Eating, the official Bright Line Eating cookbook, Resume, and On This Bright Day. She is a faculty member in Brain and Cognitive Sciences at the University of Rochester, a keynote speaker, and serves on the board of the Food Addiction Institute. In 2014, she founded Bright Line Eating, a worldwide movement dedicated to helping people achieve maintenance. Over 115,000 people from more than 100 countries have taken her courses. With no further ado, here's Dr. Susan Peirce Thompson. Susan, welcome back to 40 Plus Fitness.
Thanks, Allan. It's great to be back.
So the book we're going to talk about today is called Maintain, the 3 simple shifts that turn temporary weight loss into lasting freedom. Mm-hmm. This is an important book. I know my if you listen to this, you're going to say, he says that too much. But the reality is weight loss maintenance is probably one of the areas that no one really ever talks about too much. There's just an assumption that you cross that finish line and everybody lives happily forever after. But as most of us know that have lost weight and put it back on, and we've rolled that roller coaster several years and often several decades, keeping the weight off can often be even more difficult than the initial weight loss.
That's right. And exactly the way you phrase that, that's exactly how I start my book is likening people's fantasies about weight loss to romantic comedy fantasies about love, that the idea is that you just got to scour the earth for the perfect person, and then once you kiss on the ice skating rink, the credits roll and the assumption is now you're guaranteed a 50-year happy marriage. Like there's no work that comes after that. Anyone who's been partnered for any length of time knows that actually sustaining the relationship is where the rubber meets the road. It's one thing to fall in love. It's another thing to still be happy and flourishing, 20, 30, 40 years into a marriage. So it's the same thing with weight loss. Keeping it off is the trick. That is where I don't want to say the hard work is. It's just that it's a thing. You got to really think about it. And there are strategies and mindset tools that are helpful. And that's what this book is about.
Yeah. And from your previous book, Bright Line Eating, I knew that you would have a lot of structure. You would have a lot of techniques that you'd basically lay this out in a process for people that would be relatively easy to follow, but not in and of itself simple, because this is not a simple problem. There's a lot of depth to this and a lot of depth to the problem. But you're not just talking about this as a PhD. You have experience.
I do. Yeah. I was living with class 1 obesity in my 20s. I was heavy as a teenager, and my first big attempt to address my weight was in doing drugs. I got hooked on drugs, and the stimulants that I did, crystal meth and cocaine and crack cocaine, definitely helped me manage my eating and my weight, but of course were not an effective, sustainable long-term solution. Led to, pretty devastating consequences. I say it lightly because I've been clean and sober for 31 years now, so it's not a pain point anymore, but it was bad. I dropped out of high school, turned to prostitution, and so I knew when I was 20 years old, when I got clean, that I was an addict. And my addiction jumped right to food. And within a few months, I knew that I was a food addict. I was eating the way I used to use drugs. I was not just eating, I was using food like a drug. And I gained a tremendous amount of weight, and then really scoured the earth to try to figure out how to address my eating issue in an analogous way to how I'd stopped drinking and using drugs, but you can't stop eating. So I didn't really know what to abstain from or how to apply that same approach. There are a lot of different 12-step food programs, and I went to tons of meetings and tried to figure out what would work. And really, I just got fatter. I mean, I just got more and more miserable, developed bulimia and binge eating disorder, mostly as compensatory strategies to try to handle my weight, and gave them up ultimately because the binge eating disorder I couldn't give up. That I kept binging, but I stopped purging because it caused all sorts of issues with my esophagus and stuff, and I just ultimately kept the food in. But yeah, and finally I found an approach to eating when I was 28 that helped me lose all my excess weight. So I'm now maintaining a healthy, right-sized for me body, size US size 4, from US size, I guess my highest was size 24, down to a US size 4 now, maintaining that for 23 years. So a long, long time. So I have a lot of experience both with weight loss. I tried lots of different things to lose weight, and with weight loss maintenance now as well.
Yeah, so a word that is used a lot, particularly on Facebook forums and stuff like that, when someone really talks about struggling, and they'll throw this word out there, discipline. You just got to have discipline. You just got to grind it out. And for a lot of people, they may even be able to hit their target weight, or they go to the weight loss drugs and they're able to hit a target weight that they're like, okay, I feel pretty good at this weight. Why is maintenance different than hitting that target?
Yeah, I think what's different about maintenance is that when you need to sustain something for the long haul, it brings to the surface all of the bugaboos that you were eating over, right? So it's not just about sustaining a way of eating. You have to become someone who can tolerate that level of stability and that level of routine, and no more dopamine hits from the scale going down. Those exciting days are over. Now you have to be tolerant of your weight going up a pound, 2 pounds, hovering down a pound. Like, that's not sexy. It's not exciting. And for years, right? So the weight loss phase is super reinforcing. It's super exciting. But can you keep doing things day in and day out when you're not getting any reinforcement from the scale? I mean, I could go on, but the book is about the 3 identity shifts that are needed. The reality is people were eating over something. They weren't just eating for no reason. And to lose weight is, as a short-term thing, a lot of people can grind out a certain level of discipline for a while. but you have to really address the underlying things to sustain it then for decades.
I think the key of what you said there is identity. We have to kind of become somebody different if we want to be different. And you do give us kind of three identity shifts that we have to make if we want to have a sustainable weight loss.
Yeah.
Could you go over those? Because I think these are so important for folks to understand. If you don't do these three things, it's going to be really hard to not revert back to who you were.
Yeah. The first one is what people expect. It's being devoted. So to sustain weight loss long term, you have to be devoted to a way of eating, a way of living, a schedule, a regimen, a discipline of food, of habits, of support. And that can vary widely from person to person. Like it could be Weight Watchers and CrossFit for one person. It could be a GLP-1 medication and no alcohol for another person. It could be, bright line eating and yoga and walking for another person, whatever. So you have to have some sort of plan or program. And it might just be your own, created program. You track your food using an app. You don't eat after 6 or 7 p.m. You don't eat sugar, whatever it is, right? So you have to have your own program and you have to be devoted to it. So meaning you're not starting over on January 1st. You're devoted like a vegetarian doesn't eat meat. It's part of who you are. You are someone who eats this way, who eats and lives this way. So that's identity shift number one. And that means that you're not wildly going off it when you go on a cruise. Like you eat a certain way. And yeah, there might be slight deviations and stuff depending on, birthday party or whatever. But maybe that's part of your plan too, is like just a certain amount of wiggle or give on certain types of occasions, but you slide right back into your lane. But you certainly know what's what in terms of the program that you work, and you have a level of devotion to it that's not fly by night, right? So what's different about this than dieting is someone who's dieting is really thinking, I'm going to get this weight off and then I'm going to go back to eating whatever, whenever, or eating the way I used to eat or eating the way I like to eat. And there's a little part of them that's excited in the background that's like, ooh, I can't wait to, I have heard so many stories of people weighing in at Weight Watchers, hitting their target weight and then going and getting a pound of M&Ms and eating them in the car on the way home, right? That is not devoted. Just saying, that is not devoted.
Yeah. And then the second one was resourced?
Yes, the second one is being resourced. So this is where the you were eating over something comes up, right? So people use food as a proxy for all kinds of unmet needs. People use food to celebrate. People use food for stress relief. People use food when they're bored. People use food when they're lonely. People use food for all kinds of reasons. And it takes developing a bunch of tools and coping strategies and resources to become someone who does their inner work and doesn't need to use food to get through life anymore. Maybe not at all, or maybe just a whole lot less, and it's not your primary go-to strategy. I am definitely guilty of, having a rough day and thinking, so for example, in my food plan, dinner is protein cooked vegetable salad. That's my dinner. Okay, well, I've definitely had a hard day and thought, I'm going to cook up some breakfast sausages and put in a bag of microwave corn, just whole, not popcorn, but just whole kernel corn. And, corn as a vegetable is pretty sexy, right? It's not broccoli. It's way sweeter. It's way just, way starchier, right? And pork breakfast sausages are also not the healthiest protein. This is not grilled chicken and peppers and onions. This is a sexier meal. I've done that because I had a bad day, right? So it's not that you might never use food in any way ever, but you definitely have to be someone with resources. So what this means is maybe you develop a meditation practice. Maybe you start doing a gratitude list every night. So you start to shift your mindset toward the positive. Maybe you go into therapy and start doing some work on, childhood trauma stuff, some EMDR, some sort of other method. Maybe you work the 12 steps to, clear out your spiritual, emotional, psychic, gunk. There's all kinds of ways to become a more resourced person, but both on a day-to-day micro level and on a big picture lifetime sort of trauma, emotional resilience level, you're going to have to become someone who does their work. That's the second identity shift of being resourced.
Yeah, the way I thought about it as I was going through the book was, this is this is the part where you make sure you have what you need to succeed, or to get back on plan after you've made a departure. And many times those departures are for the right reason. I often use the example, if a buddy called me up and said, "Hey, Allan, I'm going through something. I think I might be getting a divorce. Can you have some beers with me and let's talk?" Guess what I'm going to do? Even if it wasn't in my plan to have a few beers, I'm going to have a few beers. And I'm not going to drink a club soda and make my friend feel weird. I'm just going to go and be there for my friend, because that social interaction is more important to me in the moment than sticking to plan. Mm-hmm. But I need to have the resources in place so that tomorrow I'm rehydrated, I'm ready to roll, and I still get my workout done.
Totally. And like, I'm a recovering alcoholic addict, so I wouldn't have the beers, and I would trust my friend to handle his emotions or her emotions around, my friends know I don't drink anyway, and they wouldn't ask me to drink. But all of us have those examples of, there are just ways that you're going to deviate sometimes, and you need to be able to get back on track. And you also need to know yourself well enough to know when you're going to toe the line. Like, if you have a deathly peanut allergy, it doesn't matter if your aunt, loves you and is going to be hurt if you don't eat her peanut butter cookies. You're not going to have one, right? So, we all have to toe that line. But being resourced is all about, it's also about self-esteem. It's about self-worth. If you don't value yourself, you're not going to be able to lose the weight and keep it off, right? You're going to self-sabotage. So this is where you have to start really doing your work to become someone who will tolerate keeping the weight off. And I mean, tolerate, like, it's a thing to have been overweight your whole life and then to walk through the world in a thin body. And to tolerate that difference takes some work.
Yeah, there's definitely some acclimation that needs to take place. Mm-hmm. And then the final one was liberated.
Yeah. This is so interesting. You might think that, of course, everyone who's been dying to lose their weight their whole life wants nothing more than to be liberated from the food and the weight struggle, to not have the problem anymore, to walk off into the sunset, let the credits roll, happily ever after. Hooray. Of course, everybody would tick that box, hit the easy button, say, yes, I want that. Let me be liberated from the food and the weight struggle. But actually, what I've seen, and this has taken years to notice, my program, Bright Line Eating, really solves the food and the weight problem for people really well, like definitively, like solves it. Not for everybody, but people come in and it works. And then what I see is people taking the problem back to them. And I was just wondering, why do they do that? Why do they almost deliberately, it seems, mess it up when it's working so well? And if they would just keep going, wash, rinse, repeat, they'd be fine. And here's what I finally realized, Coach Allan. I used to teach a college course on the psychology of eating. And at some point in that course, I would draw a big circle on the board. Now, I just have to say, parenthetically here, almost all of the students in that course had food issues. They didn't all have weight issues. They were young. They were 18, 19, 20 years old, but almost all of them had food issues. It's why they signed up for the course on the psychology of eating. So I draw this big circle on the board and I say, hey, everybody, this circle represents your entire life, your focus, your energy, everything you do, everything you say, everything you think, everything related to your life and your output and your input, all of it is here in this circle. I want you to shade in for me like it's a pie chart. What proportion of it is taken up generally by your food, your weight, your exercise? Like what you've eaten or not eaten, whether you're on your plan or off your plan, how many miles, how many calories, how many pounds, that obsession, that focus, all of that. And I would routinely have students start to cry. And I don't, come over and put a hand on their shoulder and ask if they were all right. And they would just say 95%. Typically a slender gal with an eating disorder would say that. That was a common thing. But Of the 40% of adults in the United States who are chronically dieting, they're starting 4 or 5 new attempts each year. And their answer to that question averages 50 to 70%. That's typical. It's a tremendous focus. It's consuming. Now, when I ask people in Bright Line Eating for whom this problem is solved, they're doing Bright Line Eating. Now, Bright Line Eating takes a lot. They've got to weigh and measure 3 meals a day. They've got to get their grocery shopping list together. They've got to, plan out their meals. They're probably doing some form of movement. They're, doing a mastermind call every week. Maybe they're on a Gideon Games team. They've learned to meditate in the morning. They're doing a nightly checklist sheet every night, blah, 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 blah. So there's a lot to it. And I want them to count that in this. This is their program. This is what they do to maintain their peace with food and weight. So it counts, all of it. Even though a lot of it, like meditating, is actually, one could argue, not part of the food and weight exercise thing. But I say no, count it. That's part of your food and weight regimen, right? And then I ask, what proportion does doing Bright Line Eating, keeping your weight steady, all of that take up? And they say 15 to 20% of my life. Some people say 10. And I think, okay, that is remarkable, because a reclaiming from 50 to 70% down to 15 to 20% is a huge windfall of time, energy, focus. It's like getting a lot of your best real estate back. Now, again, you might think, doesn't everyone want that? Doesn't everyone feel too busy? Wouldn't they be grateful to have so much time and focus re-gifted to them? But here's the thing, Coach Allan. If you've gotten to, say, age 50 or 60 with a chronic weight problem and you've been focused on dieting your whole life, if you've ignored the fact that your marriage is really in rough shape, and if you actually opened your eyes to it, you might feel like you needed a divorce. If you hadn't really developed a career that used your gifts fully, if you quietly went to work every day feeling dead inside, if you had adult kids who you were estranged from and weren't facing that pain, you were eating away that pain, it might not actually be that comfortable to face the vacuum of all that found time. And so this is where it comes back to being resourced. What I find is a lot of people reject being liberated because they have expertise trying to lose weight, failing, gaining back the weight, wash, rinse, repeat, start the cycle again. The yo-yo diet is familiar. And so they don't allow themselves to be liberated. I'll say one last thing, which is not allowing yourself to be liberated doesn't have to look like gaining all your weight back. You can lose most of your weight and then hover 5-10 pounds above what you think your goal weight is, having lost 150 pounds. And still eat a big meal, your weight goes up 2 pounds from eating out, those beers you had with your buddy. Okay, now your weight is up a little bit. Now you get to focus all week on getting those pounds off again. And you can do that little cycle, right? And tinker with your plan, change your macros, change how you're doing it. And through tinkering, or something I call finish line anxiety, keep yourself from being liberated. So that's the third shift, is to allow yourself to actually be liberated and walk away from this struggle and not claim it anymore, not fixate there.
I think those are really, really important. And again, because if you don't really change your identity, you'll probably go back to being who you were, or still suffering from the consequences of what it was like, even like you said, if you haven't gained all the weight back. In the resource part, you talked about micro tools and macro tools. Can you give us a little bit of insight into what those are and how they work?
Yeah, the micro tools are the daily ones. So this is the meditation. This is the gratitude list at night. This is having friends on speed dial that you can call. This is being in a really supportive WhatsApp group or, text thread or something with people that you're connected to. The micro tools are the daily practices so that when you're thrown off emotionally and you would eat, typically, you have other resources right at your fingertips. The macro tools are the bigger picture things like therapy that allow you to heal at a bigger level from trauma, from emotional dysregulation, sort of on a grander scale. Those are the macro tools.
Okay. In the book, you flagged one of the micro tools as being the kind of the thing maybe one of the most effective, and that was the nighttime planning for the day ahead. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that was a really good insight for someone that's like, well, I'll just go into today kind of blind, and but this will help them have a little bit more structure and feel a little bit more in control.
Yeah, writing down your food the night before is one of the linchpin tools. It only takes a couple minutes once you're in the habit of it, especially if you have a pretty structured food plan. But it's infinitely better than tracking your food after the fact. When you write it down the night before, all sorts of things happen. First of all, you use a different part of the brain. You use the prefrontal cortex, a very sort of logical, calculated part of the brain that's going to make the best decisions. It's gonna notice if there's produce in the fridge going bad, and you're not going to waste as much food. If you're planning your food ahead, you're going to eat that up when it's on its way bad, and you're not going to have to throw it out in a few days. And a different part of the brain, the mesolimbic reward addiction center, is firing when you're trying to decide, what do I want to eat right now? That's a whole different question for the brain. So you want to avoid that question. You want to have decided in advance what you're going to eat. And just taking some time to write it down the night before, and then getting into the habit of eating only and exactly that is one of the ninja tools for both weight loss and weight loss maintenance.
Yeah, because I think of it in terms of, you're going to go for a drive somewhere to go see someone, and you could carry food with you, or you can walk into a Buc-ee's or a fast food restaurant, and who knows what's going to happen there.
Yeah.
So it's really just about having a plan that you can stick to, and you're doing it at a point in time where you just had dinner, so you're not really hungry. You're kind of winding down for the day. Maybe you've done your meditation and your gratitude practice already, so you're kind of in a more calm state where you can be objective and say, okay, what does tomorrow look like? What do I have available? How can I plan this out to have the best day I can possibly have? I really like that process.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now, in the book, you brought up a concept called the 9 C's. I had not heard the 9 C's, and said that it used to be 8 C's, and now there's one added.
Yeah.
Can you kind of go through the 9 C's? Because I think this is a part of that identity shift that knowing yourself is so important. And these 9 questions, if you will, the 9 C's, I literally I think that's how you do it. That's how you get to know who you are and where you are, and what you need to work on.
Yeah, sure. This comes from a framework called internal family systems therapy, which was founded by Richard Schwartz. And it's, I think, the most helpful model of the human psyche. I mean, if you go by that adage that all models and theories are wrong, but some are useful, this is a useful one. This is a really, really useful conception of what a human psyche is. Like Freud had the id, the ego, and the superego. Interesting idea, not that useful, in my opinion. As a psychology professor, not that useful. This one's useful. So the idea is that every human being has within them an authentic, highest self. And you know that you're in that place and operating from your highest self when you're manifesting the 9 C's. So let me see if I can get them. I'm going to count here. When you're calm, clear, compassionate, confident, connected, curious, creative, courageous, and you have choice. So those are the 9 C's. The choice got added recently. So it used to be the 8 C's. And I think all of us can kind of resonate with those and get a sense of when we're there. Like, I'm there right now. I'm there. I'm in my highest authentic self. I mean, I don't expect like a badge or a prize for that. We're all there sometimes. Sometimes we're not, though. Sometimes I'm agitated. Sometimes I'm frustrated. Sometimes I'm angry. Sometimes I'm inflated and, feeling excessively prideful. Sometimes I'm grief-stricken. Sometimes I'm confused, right? So we all have lots of states of being. And what internal family systems would say is that we've all got parts of us, parts of us, that respond to the world in different ways. We've got wounded parts and protective parts. And the wounded parts, have been hurt, of course, in the past. The protective parts are trying to keep us from getting hurt. And some of them are trying to manage things so we don't get hurt. And some of them are trying to console us after we've been hurt. But we have protective parts of us. And that's why people get bent out of shape sometimes. They're in a self-protection mode. But when you can notice that you're in your 9Cs, then you're like, oh, okay, I'm in my best self. That's the time to talk to your boss about the raise that you want. That's the time to bring up to your spouse about the conversation a few days ago that maybe didn't go as well as it could have, right? When you're in your highest self, because parts trigger parts. If you come at your spouse from a self-protective, resentful, or accusational place, it's just going to trigger them to be defensive. So that's not going to work. So anyway, that's the idea of the 9Cs.
All right. And so as we would apply this to weight loss and maintenance, the closer you are to your higher self, the easier this approach. So if you start noticing that you're slipping on some of these, that's kind of the pre-warning, if you will, the flag that goes up before the flag, to just kind of let you know, okay, you're about to hit some rough waters. You need to do a little bit of work.
Yeah, potentially. Sure. So typically when people eat off their plan, they're eating for something. And yeah, if you notice that you're not in your 9Cs, then that would be a warning sign for sure.
Cool. So Doctor, I define wellness as being the healthiest, fittest, and happiest you can be. What are 3 strategies or tactics to get and stay well?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm always a fan of giving up sugar. It just doesn't do. I mean, it's so delicious, but it doesn't. It's a poison. It's a toxin, and it's not worth it for me. I have a very addictable brain, so when I eat sugar, I eat more sugar, and then it escalates. And sugar and I are not friends. So I'm a fan of giving up sugar. I mean, gosh, there's so many. I would say developing and nurturing and sustaining and fostering and investing in deeply loving human relationships, lots of them. Interestingly, introverts suffer even more than extroverts when they feel lonely. And everyone, introverts and extroverts alike, on average, feels significantly happier when they start scheduling lunch with a friend once a week. We all typically could use for more human connection. So I'm a big fan of that as well. I mean, I could list off 20 more things. Get enough sleep. Take a good walk every day. Meditate. So many things. Eat your vegetables. Lift weights, lift heavy things, move them around.
Okay.
Lots of things.
Now you've said what I wanted you to hear. So we're good. So, Doctor, if someone wanted to learn more about you, learn more about the book Maintain, and all the cool things you're doing there at Bright Line Eating, where would you like for me to send them?
Yeah, so the book Maintain's available everywhere you buy books. So that's easy. And then I would say people should go to the brightlineeating.com website and check out the 14-day challenge if they want to try, losing some weight in a style that is likely to be sustainable long term, and lend itself to weight loss maintenance long term. Then they should try the 14-day challenge. See what they think.
Great. Well, Doctor, thank you so much for being a part of 40 Plus Fitness again.
Thank you. It's wonderful to talk with you.
If you enjoyed today's show, take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you would, please leave us a rating and review on your podcast player of choice. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we discuss the 5 keys to weight loss. Until then, have a happy and healthy week.